So welcome to a bit of an introduction or setup guide, I suppose, to getting Grafana, Influx and CollectD all running on a Ubuntu server. Going to do a couple of guides on how to get the whole sort of trio of them working together and getting them to go fetch data and display their sort of results in Grafana. I'm sure you've probably seen in the home lab section of Reddit all the beautiful Grafana dashboards. They're absolutely fantastic. They're awesome. Now there will be a bit of a proper walkthrough guide with all the commands that I'm about to use listed in my blog in the comment section below. But for the moment, I'm just going to run through how to install it or how I installed it to make it work. There's obviously different ways, so go nuts if you see a better way. Please let me know. But yeah, this is just a very basic, mostly insecure. There's no sort of authentication way of installing it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to install a really sort of basic standard install of Ubuntu 16.04 I think these days on a virtual machine in Microsoft's Hyper-V. Yeah, with some defaults. Let's get started here. So I'm going to call the server netmon. This is actually number 3 because I've been mucking around quite a bit. I'm just going to put it in a different location. Next, Gen 1's cool. 2048 meg RAM.
Okay.
One thing I will do is just give it a couple more processes. Alright, let's fire it up. So just the standard Ubuntu install, nothing fancy. Alright, so while Ubuntu's installing, have a bit of a think about the things you want to graph out. You probably have already done that by now, judging off the other setups that you've seen on Reddit. But you know, traffic graphs, pings, internet speeds, WAN, port utilizations, temperatures, hard drive status, fan status. You know, to be honest with you, the list is endless. If you can get any type of data, any type of number into InfluxDB, you can graph it with Grafana. So yeah, I've actually sketched out a little bit of a plan here of things that I want to sort of graph out on different ports of my router and things like that, and yeah, specifically actually the temperature sensors on some devices. I'm quite interested to know what temperature things are at. So just get a bit of a game plan sketched out on a pencil and a piece of paper in the old-fashioned way, and yeah, or at least get a couple of screen grabs together of what you want to see or what you want it to look like. Talking and thinking about statistics, wouldn't it be interesting to know how much time us as sysadmins have sat here watching a machine install or had to wait for something? I'm horrified to think at the amount of time that I've certainly spent sitting here looking at an install or a progress bar. Okay, here's a really quick opportunity. Just install the OpenSSH server. Just super handy. If you forget, if you've gone, crap, straight past it, sudo apt-get install OpenSSH server, let it do its thing, and then run ssh-keygen space tact space RSA, and that'll generate your crypto key. All that information's on the blog as well if you need it. Alright, now servers at the first login, so let's log in and run sudo apt-get upgrade, update upgrade and distribution upgrade, just to make sure it's fully updated and ready for us. Sudo apt-get update, upgrade, yes I do. Okay, so the server's finished updating. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually just going to reboot it, just double check if there's any more packages that need to be updated. Okay, 0 packages to update. Beautiful, the server's completely updated. Now we're going to set up the IP address of the server. I probably don't need to go through too many details here. If you are looking at doing a Grafana setup, you're probably well versed in setting IP addresses on Linux hosts. So just give me 1 second here and we'll do that. Always got to check if you can ping Google. Now, if you're anything like me, I tend to bugger things up. I'm going to create a checkpoint at this point in time because we've got our base install all done, IP address fully updated. So if we muck anything up coming up, at least we can just roll back to this point in time. So we'll just quickly do that in Hyper-V here and name it something descriptive. There's nothing worse than having a tree of snapshots and not actually knowing what they are. So alright, now we can pretty much exclusively jump into PuTTY now and do most of our configuration from here. Let's make this your experience. So log back into net, we're on. Awesome, same server, how about that? Amazing. Sudo apt-get install Apache 2. Oh, that would help if I could spell. Now the role of Apache in this is obviously to serve up the Grafana web page, but also the Influx database, as the Influx database's configuration admin page as well, which is really useful in just setting up the databases and sort of checking that data is arriving in Influx. So we will really use this. Once it's finished installing, we just simply need to jump into a web browser and go to its IP address just to double check that it's all installed correctly, which it is. Happy days. The best way to install Influx is just to head over to the Influx webpage and look at the installation guide. There'll be 3 commands. Let's run those now. Okay, once you've set that up, run, well it's actually 4 commands, I lied, I'm sorry. Start the install. We can confirm that Influx is up and running just by typing InfluxD at the command line and we'll get the beautiful InfluxDB logo. And yeah, it is all up and running. So we need to jump in now and edit the config file to allow us to access the web page. So let's do that now. Sudo nano edc influxdb.conf. Now it's easy to get lost in here and we're only going to edit a couple of things, so let's be really specific here. So we're going to run down past data, there's a page key here, page down to admin. So we're going to uncomment the admin tag and say enabled equals true. And we're going to say bind address is 8083, so that's just the default there, which we'll attempt to connect in a second. HTTPS is off for the moment because we don't really, once again, as I said, the guide is very basic here. Let's start the HTTP endpoint and put its address on 8086. So what we're able to do here is we could write custom scripts to post information to port 8086. That'll go straight into Influx. So that's something we'll explore a little bit later on. Once we've got our sort of base system set up. Now we write that file out, Control O, Enter, Control X, and we need to restart Influx. Sudo ctl restart InfluxDB. Oops, what the hell's it like as well? Okay, so once you've made the changes to the HTTP section and the admin section in the config file, you can just go back to a web browser here, back where we had Apache's default page, and we can type in 8083. If everything goes well, we can see the Influx web administration. If you use 8086, it'll give you a short little 404, which is great. It's fantastic, so that means it's working. Okay, so now we've installed InfluxDB, we've tested it's working by visiting its web page. It's time to install collectd and link those two guys up. So let's do sudo apt get install collectd and also collectd utilities, you know, just in case for any unexpected, I don't know, emergencies. Collectd is quite large, so it will take a while to install, so sit back, maybe go grab a coffee, relax, I don't know, do whatever you do during a loading screen. Whilst we're installing things, we'll also install the SNMP MIBs. Now, due to some licensing, I suppose, disagreements, it doesn't come bundled with Ubuntu like it used to, so we'll just simply run the command sudo apt get install SNMP MIBs downloader. Yes. That way, collectd can use these MIBs to go and query devices across the network with SNMP. Okay, so now we're going to jump back into the InfluxDB config file that we were in just a second ago. Here we are. And we're just going to enable the collectd section. So that was just under HTTP. Here it is collectd. So we're going to enable that now. Enable equals true. Bind the address to that. That's okay. We're going to use the database collectd. Now, later on, we're going to install Telegraph and maybe some other tools that might use different databases. So anything that collectd fetches and collects, we want to put that into one database so that we can sort of keep things separate. Okay, write that file out. That's all good. And close. Okay, at this point in time, we need to just go and restart InfluxDB one more time. Just going to check the service status of Influx to make sure that it is talking to collectd correctly. Okay, so now we've edited the InfluxDB config file to allow collectd to process information to it. We need to go into the the InfluxDB web page here, and we need to create a database. Or is it already there? No, we need to definitely create a database. So we're going to call, as we specified before, collectd. Enter. There we have our database. Cool. So now we just need to start sending some data, get it doing something, and get ready for Grafana. All right. So just change the windows here to show you side by side the config file from a collectd perspective. There's a couple of things that will change in here. All right. So as we can see here, InfluxDB is now active and running. So we need to get collectd to start sending it some data. So we need to edit the collectd configuration file, in particular the network section, to start sending it data. So let's do that now. Sudo nano etc collectd collectd.conf. So we can see the two config files side by side here. So let's give it a nice descriptive name. We'll call this one here. So just keep it all okay. Netmon 3. So after in particular load, we'll check that load plugin network, but before we do this, we'll check that, say, the CPU one is up and running. Yep. So we've got battery, CPU, DF, disk, Trophy services, interface. That's going to be great for network statistics on the network monitoring virtual machine. IRQs, loads. Let's focus on the one that we're here for, which is network. Where is it? I've already gone past it. Okay, so let's enable network here. Control W, and we'll look for network. Again, so you see the plugin here, plugin network. This is one that we really need to look at. Let's enable it by just removing the comments. Whee, way too far. Okay. Now, as we've said before, this is a basic guide. If you're into IPv6 and you want to use that, I'm not going to judge you. It's all good. You can use it. But for this guide, we're just going to use IPv4. So I'll just get rid of this. Make it look nice and swish. 127.0.0.1. And remove that last bracket there. Now, we could, if we created a username and password on the Influx database, this is where you'd specify it. Once again, super simple guide. If you want to go and do that, go nuts, have fun. So let's write that configuration. Now I'll let you know, collectd is a fussy bugger. So when we start getting a little bit more complicated and putting in SNMP probes in that config file, if anytime you do something wrong, you won't have the active running when you try and restart it. It's just going to crash all the time. So pain in the butt, but it will work. Okay, so this is all well and great. We've got collectd running now. Is it sending data to Influx? I don't know. Let's go and have a look. So in Influx, if you select the collectd database and say query templates, show measurements, and press enter, this will show you all the data that's coming in. So we defined before that CPU value, we're interested in that. We said network. There's our interfaces, RX and TX on the network card. So if you're unsure whether a data value is arriving in Influx, you can just simply hit show measurements. So this is a great example where we can see all the fields, I suppose you could say, that are entering Influx at this current point in time. So that's good news, it's all working. So let's install Grafana. Alright, so to install Grafana, it's super simple. Once again, it's a bit like Influx actually. Jump on their website, have a look at the way you install it, depending on your Linux release. In our case, it's 3 commands. Let's whack them in. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to start that service. Sudo system ctl Grafana server. Make sure you always add that server bit at the end. Now, it's time to go and double, triple check that Influx, collectd, and Grafana all start on system startup. Really, obviously, quite super important. So it's very, 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 very simple. So the same command we used to start it, we just hit enable. So there's a symlink in, and we put in collectd. Now some of these would have been done on install. I think the Influx one did, but we'll just do it for good measure. Okay, excellent. So if we reboot the server now, everything will be fine. Now you notice that I did sudo systemctl start Grafana server. So Grafana's up and running. How cool is that? What we're going to do is we're going to jump back to our web page here, open up another tab, and we're going to go to the server's IP address on port 3000. Here it is. Finally, we got there. I can hear you cheering. Yay, we're getting there. Okay, so the standard authentication is admin. And the first thing we need to do is just tell Grafana where to get its data from. So we click on the Grafana logo, data sources, add a data source. We're going to call this one Influx. So it's going to be the default database because it's going to be where we store everything. InfluxDB. Now if you click in this field, it does something amazing for you. It already knows, it reads your mind. That's exactly what you want to click. Leave the rest of this, obviously if you will use authentication, if you set that up back into config files, this is where you'd specify it. But simple Simon guide, we're not going to bother with that. So we'll just put in the database that we're using, which is collectd, and hit add. Data source is working, happy days. Now the bit you've all been waiting for, seriously. Let's create a new dashboard here, and we're going to put a graph in. We click on this panel title here. This is where you modify all the settings related to this one panel. So if we go edit, and we'll give it a snappy name like CPU usage, and transparent ones are always prettier. Metrics. So this is where we'll sort of talk in detail later on. For the moment, let's just get some data in there. So we're going to select the measurement of choose load in the short term where the host is netmon 3, and we can see the load on the CPU is currently hitting 0.25%. It'll do like a seesaw fashion because it's collect D, influx, all working together in harmony, I suppose, like a well-oiled engine. Let's give it an alias. So CPU usage in the short term. But at the moment, I'm going to leave it at this point in time because this is now up and running. So far, just to recap, we've installed an operating system, we've installed collectd, we've installed a database, InfluxDB, and we've installed Grafana, a way to visualize that data. So from here, we're going to go later on and install some SNMP stuff so we can monitor temperatures and our router and our switching and any other sort of SNMP devices that you have on your network. Later on, we might use things like Telegraph to actually install onto hosts to get sort of more detailed metrics. So I hope you've enjoyed the brief, I suppose, guide, but the simple Simon guide on how to get it up and running. And as I said, later on, we'll go into a bit more detail on other things we can put into Grafana. Thanks for your time, and make sure you read the document in the comments below there. Cheers.